Hello, everybody. Welcome back to We're Talking Movies, and this is part two of our tier list featuring our lovely guests, Blue and Myka. And if we're picking up where we left off from last time, thank you for tuning back in.
All right, well, next up we have Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And I would actually like to start on this one.
Go ahead.
I do not think this movie is talked about enough. I actually think this is better than the first Ant-Man. I think I love the romantic comedy almost dynamic between Scott and Hope. Again, I love the supporting cast. I think Michael Douglas is once again great in this. I love the addition of Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet. And I think Ghost is one of the most underratedly good villains in the MCU. I love her backstory. I love the unique look she has. I love her unique motivation being, yes, it's revenge, but it's also trying to fix herself as well because she does blame Hank Pym to an extent. I thought Lawrence Fishburne was a great addition. I mean, he's always great to see in a movie. More really creative action sequences with the shrinking. Yeah, I do not think enough people talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
This is another one I have not seen,
Oh,
so I will be leaving.
Do you not like ants?
Hate them. No,
No.
it's one of those. Okay. When the Ant-Man movies were coming out, I was only watching movies that I had to when it came to MCU. I got really into it and then I got too into it. I just got bored of it almost. Like it was just too much. I was like, I don't
Burnt
want to watch it
out, kind
anymore.
of.
You burnt out. There you go. I got burnt out with Marvel for a bit. So I was only watching movies that I absolutely had to if I was playing a character for a kid's party because those kids ask questions and some of them are really good questions. They're like, what did you do in this scene at this time when this character said something to you? And I'm like, oh, I did that one thing, you know? It's like I have to watch those ones. So I did not watch this one.
well, you should give it a shot. I think it's definitely worth a watch.
It's definitely on my list of when I need to catch up on more MCU and not rewatch the ones that I like.
I think it's a decent sequel to the first Ant-Man. The only issues that I've ever had with it are I honestly think there are maybe just a little too many villains because you have Ghost, she's more of the main villain, but then you also have Bill Foster, played by Lawrence Fishburne, helping her. And then you also have Sonny Birch and his men helping him out because they're trying to steal Hank's lab so that they can sell to that mysterious buyer. And then you also have the FBI who are watching Scott, which they're not really villains, but they're kind of also a threat. So for me, there have just been a little too many villains in this movie, just in my opinion. And one other thing that always bugged me about it was that we never found out who that mysterious buyer was who wanted to buy Hank's lab. Because I was thinking, oh, is that going to be like a big reveal? Is it going to be another Marvel character? And we never found out, so that was kind of disappointing.
Why do I get the feeling that was supposed to be Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, but then the pandemic happened and that kind of got kiboshed?
I remember seeing this movie in a really dingy Romanian theater in the summer of 2018.
Do you
All
want
like
to?
it was, huh?
I was going to say, would you like to elaborate why?
I was
Were you
visiting
getting
family.
plums?
Yeah, I was getting plums. Honestly, this movie just felt like filler. Ghost was kind of forgettable in my opinion. She looked pretty cool in Thunderbolts in the trailer, but trailers are kind of deceiving nowadays.
Ugh, yeah.
I don't know, it just didn't really felt like the stakes were too low in this movie. I don't know. Still had that great chemistry between Scott and Hope, which I really like. Other than that, it's just kind of C tier for me.
Yeah, I think it's honestly more C tier. Not a bad movie in my opinion, but not one of the stronger ones.
Well, I was actually thinking B tier, but it definitely sounds like I'm sort of in the minority on this one, so I'd be willing to agree to a C.
Well, next up we have Captain Marvel.
Uh, this is one I always kind of forget exists, weirdly enough.
I liked it because of how I saw it in theaters. I saw it with it was one of the last movies that my best friend before she moved to Florida, we would go opening night to the theater next to her house and we'd get all dressed up and go and see movies. And this was one of the last ones that we saw together. So it's special to me in that way, but I feel like Brie Larson could have done a little bit better. It feels like she was holding back. Not that it was bad. It doesn't feel like her full potential. or that she was playing it as herself, not as Captain Marvel.
This is honestly one of my least favorite MCU films, in all honesty. I don't think Captain Marvel is that interesting of a character. I don't think she has that much personality. I didn't find the plot of this movie all that interesting or engaging. I thought the villains were kind of forgettable. The action was just kind of okay to me, but yeah, I think it's definitely one of the weaker MCU films.
I agree. It's I only liked it because of how I watched it. Again, it has nothing to do with the movie itself.
Am I the only one that gets the vibe from this movie that there's like a lot of very obvious inspiration from other movies? Like, does anybody else see like oh, that's clearly some Guardians of the Galaxy inspiration. That's clearly inspired by Star Wars. Am I the only one that gets that vibe? It's like it never really is its own thing.
I could see that.
Again, I thought Brie Larson was okay, and that was about it. Especially when I learned that apparently one of the other casting choices was Charlize Theron, who I thought would have been an amazing Captain Marvel.
To me, I don't know about you guys, but not just in this movie, every time I see an Avengers movie or Marvel movie with Captain Marvel, Brie Larson just seems like she'd rather be anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see that.
I think she's trying to play Captain Marvel similar to Gamora, but she's not playing it off. Because Gamora, having, played around with her character, she's very standoffish and she acts like she doesn't want to be there, but you can tell that she does and she cares about the people around her. And she will, that's just that character type. But with Captain Marvel, I feel like I don't know. Again, yeah, she could be anywhere else.
I almost wonder if Captain Marvel would work better if she had more comedic characters to play off of. Because, like you were talking about just a second ago, Mika, Gamora is kind of got a similar personality, but she has Rocket and Drax and Peter Quill to work off of, who are very
Yeah.
comedic characters. I almost wonder if maybe she'd be better off if Captain Marvel had a comedic relief character to play off of.
That'd be really interesting to see because I think that it was just too much. You bringing that up, it seems like it was just too much of her by herself and in this movie. I really like Nick Fury having that portion of the movie in there, his origin and losing the eye and stuff. That was awesome to have, but I don't know, put it in a better movie.
She's like the human embodiment of like a 9 to 5 office job. She's just very boring. She has no emotion. Again, this is just kind of filler for the era between Infinity War and Endgame, so people can just watch it 'cause they're bored at home. Typical villain, it was a twist all along. It was just nothing like intriguing. There was no balance in humor or seriousness, or it just felt very like an uneven movie to watch.
It feels like it should have been a minor character introduction in one of the previous movies like that we talked about of like the Civil War or the Avengers one. It feels like she should have been a rushed character introduction. That way it feels like the movie it was like we got to get this out here. Out and this is what it's going to be and it's like what, don't rush that. If you're going to rush it, put it in as a very fast clip in one of those previous jumbled movies. That way you can actually sit down and do a good job at explaining her origin story.
Yeah, and with all that, I'm kind of thinking it's more of a D tier film.
Say D or F.
Probably F for me.
I was going to say C. I didn't think I was going to be the most forgiving for this movie. Jeez. Okay.
Can't forgive for these crimes.
Don't forget what they did to the Skrulls as well.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
true.
I guess F. I'm going to say F.
All right, F tier it is. Well, next up is a very special one because we now have one of Andrew's favorite movies of all time, and that is Avengers Endgame. Andrew, you want to start?
Yes. Where did I put this on my list? Did I put this at 5 or 4 or 3?
I think this was number 4.
That sounds correct. And for me, this is got to be one of the most emotional movies to watch, not just because of the heartbreaking moments in this movie, like the death of Iron Man and the death of Black Widow, but also just for that one cathartic cinematic moment of Avengers Assemble with the portals. 10 years of different directors, different casts, introducing characters, weaving them in and out of the story for that one cathartic moment is why I love this movie so much. And throw the fact that it's got that amazing final battle between all of the Avengers and Thanos' army. I like the time heist. I think it's an interesting concept. I love this movie. This is S tier. I will hear no arguments from you, Kate, in particular, because I know your opinions of this movie.
Hey, hold up, hold up. I told you, I've come to appreciate this movie a lot more than I used to, because I used to be really critical of this movie, but I've come to enjoy it a lot more as I go back to it. I do like the time heist idea, and I do like Thanos in this movie as well. I like the emotional payoff that it has. Personally, I don't think it's better than Infinity War, but yeah, I think it's still a really good movie.
I have to agree. It is a really amazing movie and very emotional, cinematically beautiful. The effects are amazing, but I think that it was a lot at once, especially with how great Infinity War was. Getting this and then just, I mean, I wasn't disappointed. It was an amazing movie, but I was disappointed because Black Widow died, you know? So, and I'm disappointed when Gamora died, but it felt like it was as much as I want to say it was too emotional, it was the perfect amount of emotional. So I think it's a really good movie. I'd put it at A.
This is a I'd give this movie an A. The the main thing I really like about this movie is the emotional payoff we got from Iron Man's sacrifice and then Captain America finally having that one dance with Peggy. I think that's really nice, especially because, we started watching the MCU in 2008 and this took almost what 10, 11 years. That's a lot of movies we had to go through. I think it was very well, good way to end it. The action was a great. The first half was felt really slow though with the time heist. Not saying that it was boring or anything. It was fun to watch, but I feel like it was a bit too slow. Thanos again was great. I just don't think you can beat Infinity War with this because of, Infinity War, we see the villain win for the first time, and it's just something we really haven't seen in movies.
Yeah, I think one of the big things I've always had an issue with about this movie, and Andrew, I'm sorry to bring this up again. I know how much you get mad when I say this. When Hawkeye and Black Widow go to get the stone and they have to sacrifice Black Widow to do that, but it's about you have to sacrifice someone that you love. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of convenient, you know? How convenient that they happen to send two Avengers who love each other. Because what if they sent Ant-Man and Hulk to go get that stone instead?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's not think about that.
Or what if they sent Rocket and Iron Man?
Mm.
That's a dynamic I wish we'd actually gotten to see more of, actually.
When Rocket says boom while they're putting the the gauntlet together. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was really good.
All right, so what do we want to say for this one?
I'm willing to put it in S tier.
It's a A tier.
I'd say A.
Do we want to flip a coin on this one, or
Also, I don't think here's my argument for actually no, this is more for S tier then. Okay, yeah, yeah, wait, let's put it S tier because I don't think you would never think that you would never see Spider-Man riding Valkyrie's Pegasus while holding the Infinity Gauntlet while being pulled by Thor's hammer. I think that's just insane.
All right, S tier it is then. Next up, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. I think that this is definitely a good movie. I really like Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. Tom Holland's always great, of course, and Sam Jackson's a great Nick Fury. The movie does a great job with the chemistry between Peter and MJ. I think that's definitely one of the highlights. You know, they're both fun to watch together, and the action's pretty good. Mysterio and all the visual effects, I think, are awesome, especially that one section of the movie where he traps Peter. Yeah, I think it's definitely a good movie. Still not better than Homecoming, in my opinion, but still good.
I think it was a good second. It wasn't like a disappointing sequel, if you will, but it definitely was not better than the first.
I think part of the reason why is because I don't think the reveal of Mysterio being a villain was that big of a surprise.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you knew anything about the character of Mysterio, you knew that he wasn't at all what he was actually presenting himself as.
Oh, yeah, Mysterio's a good guy in this one. This is a different, variant and all that. Every time I heard that, all I could think was, yeah, no, I don't believe you.
Yeah, why are you pushing that, huh?
Actually, one thing that I need to add about this movie that I really like that is not talked about enough, in my opinion, is the dynamic between Happy Hogan and Spider-Man in this movie.
Yes.
I really like their kind of protective uncle and nephew dynamic they kind of have. Like, it's not quite like father and son. It's not like that close, but
There's still love.
yeah, you can clearly tell that Happy very much cares about Peter, even if he does seem to drive him up a wall on occasion. But yeah, weirdly enough, in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, this is the one I've watched the least number of times. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to the discourse on this one.
Mysterio, he was okay. I think his motivations were, I don't know, kind of weird.
Is it because he's another villain with a vendetta for Tony Stark?
Yeah, I think so. It's just what he became a villain because Tony didn't like his product. It's a very predictable movie. Like you knew what Mysterio's intentions were. B tier, at least, I'd say.
I think it's a B tier.
I can agree.
All right, well, next up we have Black Widow. Mika, do you want to talk about this movie first?
Uh, I love this one. It's good. It's funny, it's witty. It also is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen a superhero movie where it's explaining the origin, not in the beginning. Because this is in between Infinity and Endgame, yes?
It takes place after Civil War.
After Civil, it's between one of the two. Um, but it gives that bits and pieces of her origin story while also trying to clean up the pieces of her past without feeling like, okay, it's years down the line. We already have seen Black Widow in multiple MCU movies. Now that ScarJo is a lot older than she was when she first started as Black Widow, let's make it an origin story where you see her at the beginning at her youngest. And it's like that if they did that, I would be so disappointed. And I know that some people were disappointed that they didn't get that, but you have to be realistic about it. And I think that they did a beautiful job meshing the past with the present, but giving us that this is how she grew up, this is where she comes from, giving us Yelena, Red Guardian. It's so great and so funny. I loved it. I saw it in the drive-in with my niece and I we watched it over and over again. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies.
Well, Mika, you're probably about to hate everything that I'm about to say.
Go on.
Okay, so I personally didn't find the plot of this movie all that interesting. The action wasn't really that good, in my opinion. I didn't really care for the villain. I wasn't really a fan of what they did with Taskmaster. I thought Scarlett Johansson was still good in the movie. I really liked Florence Pugh as Yelena. I liked their dynamic. But other than that, this movie is just kind of forgettable for me. I'm sorry.
No, I mean I get it. It's one of those like picking up the pieces. Why are you picking up the pieces kind of movies. I think that bringing up Taskmaster completely slipped my mind. I think it was a beautiful time to introduce simply as someone who goes to Avengers Campus frequently, having that outlet going and especially seeing it on like TikTok and Instagram, them bringing those characters, even if it's for limited release, into the real world and that show, the stunt show with Taskmaster and all that. I think it was a amazing time to introduce somebody like that because they could do so much with that and with those shows and everything.
I'm not a fan of this one, and the main reason is I'm a huge fan of the villain Taskmaster. I think he's one of the coolest villains Marvel has. And I also like the fact that they make him a chatterbox who likes to wax poetic about his own greatness. So, yeah, I hated what they did to Taskmaster in this movie. I don't have any problem with them making her a girl, nothing with that, as long as the character is still presented in the same way. Well, let's take this chatterbox of a villain who is able to predict his, hyper intelligent and so advanced that he's able to predict his opponent's moves. And let's make him a generic Winter Soldier clone who doesn't talk and is a mimic.
Kind of like a Deadpool in X-Men Origins.
Oh
That's
yeah, oh,
fair.
that's a good comparison. So yeah, I'm like, oh, I hated that. I hated the main villain, aka generic evil scientist number 10,562. And I mean, I loved Black Widow in like every other appearance she's had, but I don't know. In this one, she feels kind of bored. I mean, I liked Yelena. I liked their sister dynamic. I thought Red Guardian had moments of being funny, but other times I thought he was really annoying. I thought the ending was a confusing mess. Yeah, not a fan of this one. And I'm kind of glad I just paid to rent this one through Disney Plus and didn't pay full theater price to see it.
You know, a lot of I remember back then people were asking like, "Oh, what's the next Marvel movie?" And everyone's like, "Oh, you know what? I'd love to see a Black Widow movie." This is a very long-awaited solo film, and it does a great job of exploring her past. And again, Scarlett Johansson, she kills it as always. But I don't know. I think the long-awaited movie, it just didn't hit right for me, I guess. I don't know, maybe because it's a COVID film. I also have to put that in mind. Maybe there were some drawbacks, especially with the visual effects. Those were pretty gross. The new characters are really cool. I really like Yelena. I think this movie also fails to try to be a spy movie in a way. If that's what they were aiming for, I don't think they really did a good job on it.
I can see that.
Taskmaster was was not good at all. Pacing was just slow at times. Again, it's a COVID movie. It's a time I want to forget. So this movie belongs in that year.
Was this the kind of the beginning of the phase where it's like, oh, maybe the MCU isn't as bulletproof as we thought it was?
This is when it starts going a bit down.
Yeah, kind of looking at what we got left in the lineup. Yeah, I tend to agree.
Well, with that, Mika, what would you give it? Would you give it an S tier?
I saw it at the right time in the right headspace. Everything was right, minus COVID. I would give it an S, but I'm willing to go A or B.
I was gonna say D. I really didn't like this one.
Ah, my heart. It's okay.
Tell you what, I'd be willing to put it in C tier just because of how high Mika has it. So
Put that in D tier.
I'm willing to go C.
I was gonna say,
Final
let's
Final
not break
offer.
Mika's heart too much here. Let's give her a C.
all right, we'll give Black Widow a C. All right, next up we have Shang-Chi. I thought this movie was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed all the fight sequences. I like that we finally got to see the real Mandarin and all the 10 rings. In my opinion, in more recent years, it's one of the better MCU films. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely not one of my all-time favorites, but still a good movie.
I think the visual effects were beautiful.
Oh, definitely one of the better MCU special effects.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I really like this movie too. I'd say up until No Way Home came out, this was probably the best post Endgame MCU movie. I thought the fight choreography was phenomenal. I love Chinese mythology, so anything that has that kind of inspiration to it is always welcome in my book. I thought Simu Lee was a really good Shang-Chi. I thought he brought a lot of emotion to the role, especially the conflict with his father, the Mandarin. Aquafina, I thought was actually a pretty solid comedic relief character. Yeah, pretty solid movie in my opinion.
I don't have much to say. I I've watched it once and I thought it was really good. I liked it. I also thought that she was going to be annoying watching in the trailer, but she turned out to be a pretty decent character to the movie. Again, visual effects were everything for me in during watching this. I'd give it a B.
The action, I think, was the main star of this movie, especially the bus scene. I feel like that's a top 10 Marvel action scene ever. Also, kind of like Black Panther, it does a really good job with cultural representation, especially with like the rich Chinese cultural background they all have. Also, the villain, Wen Wu, he was really good, especially with his motivations and his twist on why he had to like do everything for his family. It's a solid movie. I'd probably give it like a B.
Next up, we have Eternals. I really don't have much to say about this movie because to me it was just very forgettable. I never really got attached to any of the characters, and if that doesn't happen for me in a movie, then it's really hard for me to stick with what's going on. So I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be, but it just didn't really land for me, in all honesty. What about you guys?
It's me. It's another one I haven't seen. But this time is not because of Ant-Man. Has nothing to do with ants. This one, my boss is a huge Marvel, huge Star Wars guy. So when it comes to seeing new Marvel movies, if I'm not sure about it, I wait to hear what he thinks. And if he's like, it's a waste of your time, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna watch it. And he was just like, don't. It sucked. I was like, oh, okay, not watching it. So I did not see it.
Much like the Incredible Hulk, this one left no real impact on me. Kate, I agree with you. I didn't really learn to care about any of the characters. I was more just confused as to where they fit in like the future stories. The effects were really nice. I'll give it that. Yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Kind of just there for me.
Is it filler for you, Blue?
I don't even know what this is. I don't even consider it filler. I just think it's kind of a waste of money of a movie.
That's a good way to put it.
Eternals, I haven't heard of them. I feel like, with Guardians, they made a team that wasn't well known in the comics into something of an iconic thing in cinema, but This was kind of like the opposite, where they just, I don't know, all the characters were kind of the same. They were flat, forgettable. The pacing was god awfully slow. Villain, I don't even remember his name. It felt very disconnected from the MCU. So it doesn't even seem like it's from the Marvel universe in a way. I think the only thing I have to say is Makari's running. That was really cool. Like that's the best speedster I've ever seen visually.
So what are we thinking for our ranking?
Put that in
D,
that enough.
F.
All right, I guess we're putting in enough tier. Well, next up on the list, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. I enjoy this movie quite a bit. I think it's top three best Spider-Man movies ever made in live action. I really like the story. I like all the character dynamics. I love that we got to see the villains from the other movies along with Toby and Andrew. That was so fun to see. Actually, Andrew, this is one of our first reviews for the channel.
Yes, it was. And it was the first time that I got you and my other best friend Calvin into the same room together, was when we saw the three together as the three of us. One of the few movies that had that much hype behind it and then lived up to it.
Yeah.
Best Christmas ever.
I definitely agree. It's one of those that with the whole, I've gotten and still am a little tired of the whole different variant stuff that they've been doing because it just feels like an excuse to redo movies or redo canon things.
Cashing in on nostalgia.
Yes, exactly. But this one, as much as it very much is cashing in on nostalgia, they did it beautifully.
Very true.
The only big issue that I've ever had with this movie, and Andrew and I agree with this, is I honestly never liked the whole section where Ned gets Doctor Strange's powers. I was just never a fan of that.
That is questionable.
Does anybody else feel like that's a little too convenient?
Yeah.
But God, again, with that much hype behind it, for it to come out and then be that good is very rare. You got a great performance by Tom Holland as Peter Parker. He's again got great chemistry with MJ and Ned. He's got great chemistry with the other Peter Parkers. It was great to see Toby and Andrew again. You got Doctor Strange as this unwitting, annoyed stepdad throughout the entire movie. I thought he was great as that. It was great to see all these villains again. Willem Dafoe hasn't missed a step as Green Goblin. Alfred Molina hasn't missed a step as Doc Ock. Jamie Foxx was actually good as Electro in this one, which he was not in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Fight me. What a movie. What a movie.
I'm willing to put it in A tier, but I think it's an S tier film, honestly.
Yeah.
Great.
Can we also agree that Goblin's probably the most scariest villain
Yes.
in the MCU, at least now?
So good too.
It's amazing how much better Green Goblin's costume got after he lost the stupid mask from the first Spider-Man way back in the day.
All right, well, next up we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Well, you know how I said a couple minutes ago, Spider-Man No Way Home had all that hype behind it and lived up to it? Well, this is the exact opposite. This had all the hype behind it and then just came out and it's like, really? That's it? That's it?
Yeah.
You know what I think the issue might have been? Well, it's called Multiverse of Madness, but we didn't really get much multiverse from it. It was really just the madness is more what it seemed like.
That's fair.
From a directing standpoint, I think that it's a movie where Sam Raimi kind of shines when it comes to his horror element. He's directed some classic horror films like the Evil Dead trilogy, but it's a movie where you can tell he was able to apply his horror knowledge to it, and I think that worked really well. So I give the movie points for that, but yeah, I think it's kind of an underwhelming sequel compared to the first one.
I think it was an unplanned, rushed cash grab, if you will. It feels very much like we're going to do this and everybody's going to love it. But if we want to do it, we got to do it now. So let's just get something out there. It's like I feel like they could have worked a little bit better with building it or bringing in more multiverse aspects of it.
Yeah, and also one scene that's always bugged me is when Mr. Fantastic says to Scarlet Witch, Black Bolt will kill you with one whisper from his mouth. You look back and you think, okay, so he basically just told her how to defeat him. So that's always bugged me.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the Illuminati in this. They're, hyped up to be this, immensely powerful gaggle of ultra intelligent superheroes, and then they get wiped off the face of the earth pretty damn easily. And that's another thing I didn't like, is that this really isn't a Doctor Strange movie. This is really more a Scarlet Witch movie. where Doctor Strange is just in it.
It feels like the Civil War, the Captain America Civil War. It's not Captain America's movie, it's a Avengers. It should have been an Avengers movie kind of feel. Not saying that this should have been an Avengers movie, but yeah, it didn't feel like a Doctor Strange movie.
It kind of makes me think that, well, if you look back, it feels like Wanda didn't really learn anything from WandaVision.
Nope.
That's the other thing. I think you needed one division as background knowledge before watching this, and not everybody has seen that.
I have too many thoughts on this one. I think this is the first movie after Disney Plus was released, so it kind of gave that idea that we needed to buy Disney Plus to watch WandaVision in order to understand what happens in this one, kind of. Which I don't know if that's a big issue or not, but I feel like you kind of have to know what happened.
It's the ultimate cash grab.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's a cash grab, especially coming from the hype from Spider-Man. I feel like everyone had such high hopes, especially with cameos and everything. And at this point, everyone was talking about cameos on TikTok, which is just annoying, right? Because you're just giving false promises to your audience. And then I remember one of my friends described this movie as babysitter in the multiverse of madness because he was just taking care of America Chavez, who was kind of like the main hero of the movie, I would say. And then the movie really did ruin Wanda's redemption from Westview, which I didn't really appreciate.
Yeah, and honestly, one character that I think could have been used better was Sinister Strange.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Mm.
I liked his design. I thought the zombie look was pretty cool. That's really all I can say about it.
Well, here's what I mean. I think he should have been the villain of the film instead of Wanda.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been better.
Or I think even Nightmare would have been such a great villain if they had kept the original director.
What are we thinking, though? C tier?
C or
Yeah,
D.
Yeah,
sure.
Singer Day. Again, just
I'm willing to give it a C tier. I don't think it's one of the worst MCU films, but not one of the better ones. So I would give it a C tier.
yeah, looking at what we've got on this in the absolute bottom of the barrel, it's not that bad, but it's not that good either.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, next up we have Thor: Love and Thunder. Yeah, this is definitely one of my least favorite MCU films. I really didn't like what they did with Thor in this movie. I still didn't really enjoy the chemistry between him and Jane. I also didn't think the plot was all that good. So one issue I've had with more recent MCU films is that it's hard to take them seriously, and that's kind of a stupid thing to say, I know, but if the characters don't really care about what's happening, then it's hard for me to care about what's happening too, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I was excited about this movie and then I saw it and I was disappointed. I hate Thor's costume. I hate it. It looks like a Party City version of his costume. I'm sorry. I hate it.
I will say this, the standout of the movie for me was probably Christian Bale. Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher I thought was fantastic. I think he was the best thing about the movie.
Yeah.
Although I think he was good in it, I think we didn't really see enough of Gore. I wish we could have gotten more of him as he was hunting gods. I wish we saw more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that would have been a lot better. But no, there's not a lot I like about this movie. Christian Bale as Gore is one of the few things I do like. That scene where he's got all the children of Asgard and he's kind of hidden in shadow, you just see his eyes glowing, is genuinely really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, there's not much else I like in this. I think they lean too heavy into the humor. Because at least with Ragnarok was funny, but it had emotional moments to go with it to kind of balance it out, like Odin's death, Hela basically kicking Thor and Loki's ass pretty easily,
Mm-hmm.
destruction of Asgard. You had that emotional moments to counteract the humor. You never really get that in this movie. So the humor feels really annoying. And I hated the stuff with all the other gods on their weird god planet. I thought Zeus was annoying. Not really any memorable action. Valkyrie and Thor didn't have anywhere near the chemistry in this one that they did in the last one. And my God, Thor all of a sudden can give his powers to other people. That would have been really useful in Wakanda.
Yeah.
This is one of the few MCU movies I consider out and out bad.
I feel like this movie is very insensitive. I don't feel like it's appropriate to put humor after, a character is suffering from something like cancer. I feel like that's just kind of very disjointed. The villain was great, underused though, especially when you have Christian Bale, such a great actor. This is just it's a fallen quality, this movie. especially having Jane Foster return felt very kind of like, oh, where have you been? I mean, we find
Yeah.
out why, but like, why now? Why you come back now? I don't know. The humor felt very, very forced compared to Ragnarok. I think that the writers were different. I might be wrong. I think they gave Taika more control on this movie, but I don't know. It's just it's a messy movie, and I just don't like it.
I think they wanted it to be something that it just wasn't. Like I was expecting it to be not funnier, but I was expecting to like the funny moments more. And for whatever reason, I was like, it again, it felt more annoying than funny. I think my favorite scene out of the whole movie was the ending scene with his daughter. That's it. That's my favorite scene.
Yeah, like the part when it said the end.
Yeah. That was my favorite scene.
I also got really tired of all the screaming goats.
Oh God.
Ugh, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about how annoying they were.
That felt like it was geared especially towards like children. And it's like, yes, kids can watch this movie, but it's not a kids movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And actually, I have a theory. Tell me if you guys agree. I think this might be one of the reasons why the movie didn't work. When you have a villain like Gore, I don't think the movie's light tone matched with the dark presence that Gore was supposed to have.
Hmm.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Yeah, they should have saved him for another. It's like they had a list of villains and they were like, all right, well, we'll use this guy.
He could have been the villain of the Dark World.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
That would have been a better fit.
All right, well, here's the thing. What would we give this for a ranking?
F.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
F or D.
F tier.
All right, going in F tier.
It was just disappointing, man.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, now we are on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. As a sequel, I thought this movie was okay. I think the visual effects were a lot better than the first movie. I really liked the tribute that it paid to Chadwick Boseman. That was really good.
Hmm.
But story-wise, I honestly just didn't like this movie as much as the first one.
I agree. That honestly, that's all my thoughts on it. I think that it felt like they needed to push it as a tribute. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but whether it was in the works already and then he passed and then they're like, okay, now it's going to be a tribute. It's like, well,
Mm.
I don't. It just felt like that's all it was, and it was like really hyped because everybody's like, oh, they're gonna do a cool tribute or something to him, but then have a good movie to back it up. Not that it's a bad movie. It just I don't know. It was lacking.
From my understanding, when after Chadwick passed away, they had to do heavy rewrites on this movie. Like Namor was still going to be the villain, but a lot of the things were changed.
Yeah, but it felt like that, which is unfortunate.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think Namor wasn't as good of a villain as Killmonger, so that was another thing.
Hmm.
I also think this movie's actually a little too long for its own good. Like, I know the original Black Panther was a longer movie, but 2 hours and 41 minutes, that's a long time to fill. And this movie has a lot of slow moments that make it feel like it's that length.
Hmm.
Again, I don't think it's a bad movie by any means.
No, it's not. I mean, the acting is good across the board, in my opinion. And when the action is there, I thought it was pretty solid. But yeah, I feel like going off of what Blue and Micah said, I feel like this was written for Chadwick, and this would have been better if he was still with us. Sadly, he is not. So that this movie suffered greatly because of that.
I mean, I wouldn't give it a low ranking. I'm willing to give it maybe a B minus or a C plus. What about you guys?
I agree. I would say C plus only because again, it no fault to anyone, obviously, but it just would have been better with Chadwick.
I think C is a good spot for it.
Yeah. See.
All right, Andrew, we now have your favorite MCU film. We're
Oh, good Lord. I fucking hate Ant-Man 3. This is the worst movie the MCU has put out. I despise it. This is one of the only times I've ever considered walking out of a theater. It was my worst movie of 2023. I rewatched it recently. It's somehow worse. I hate this movie.
Guys, I think Andrew hates this movie.
it's very possible, Mika.
I am nothing if not consistent. Did not watch it, and I will not be watching it.
Oh, it is the CGI in the MCU was shaky. This is the movie where it's downright atrocious. I've seen special effects from the 90s that look better. They spend all of this time hyping up Kang as this next Thanos level threat for the MCU. He's supposed to be our big bad for the next decade. He gets defeated by a bunch of bad looking CGI ants. None of the humor lands. It's all so confusing. Bill Murray shows up and looks bored for 10 minutes.
And let's not forget MODOK.
Oh my God, MODOK. Okay. MODOK has always looked ridiculous. I will 100% give you that. But he's always been presented as a hyper intelligent, deadly threat of a villain, not an annoying, whiny, diffusing waste of oxygen of a villain that gets a completely unwarranted redemption arc for no stupid reason.
Well, and one other thing, Andrew. I think if you took MODOK out of this movie, it really wouldn't change anything.
Ugh, I hate
Hey,
this
bro, sun's
movie.
getting real low, bro.
Sun's getting real low.
I will say this, Andrew. I think the best part of the movie is probably Jonathan Majors. I think he's still good in the movie. I don't like how his character's handled in the end, but I think he's still decent in it.
Oh yeah, Jonathan Majors does a great job portraying Kang, but then they completely neuter him at the end of the movie and just kill all that momentum they had building him up.
Also, the fact that Janet feels like more of the protagonist of this movie than Scott does.
Oh yeah. Janet's the protagonist in this movie. Scott has to take a back seat in his own movie. Cassie Lang's annoying as all hell in this movie. What else can I trash this movie for?
I think Andrew hates this movie. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm scared.
Put it in F, bro. Put Andrew out of his misery.
Okay.
This is the bottom of the barrel. Nothing the MCU can make will be worse than this.
Well, all right then. That is going in F tier. Well, good news for you, Andrew. Now we have one of the better MCU films. We have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Okay, Myka and Blue, you guys talk about this first. I need to get my blood pressure under control.
So good. The first F-bomb in MCU history, Disney history, I feel like. It was really good. I was a little disappointed in the whole different universe Gamora, just because I love my girl so much. But I really liked this movie, and it felt like at first there was going to be way too much emotion tied to it, that it was just going to be one of those, this is just an emotional movie to show a character's backstory. But I like that it's not a Rocket Raccoon movie. It is a Guardians of the Galaxy movie that explains the way he is. Whereas the other ones, yes, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 gave a bit more of Peter's backstory. Each one has a little bit of everybody's backstory. But this one was obviously very heavily centered around Rocket, but it was balanced with humor and what you want in a Guardians of the Galaxy film.
I think it's a movie where James Gunn also really shines as a director and a writer. I think it's his best film, and I think it's also his most emotional film. I think he pulled that off really well, so I give him a lot of credit for that.
I completely agree. I think this one, it very much was him on crack, if you will. He was just going at it and made an amazing film. Like nobody told him no. He just went for it.
Yeah, and I get the sense that it feels like this is the one where he had the most creative freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I thought this movie was fantastic. It's one of my favorite MCU films now. Loved everything about it. I love the plot, love the character dynamics. I thought the villain was great, High Evolutionary. Reason why is because he's a villain who, not only is he well written, but he's a villain who you can instantly just come to detest just because of what he does.
I don't want to say I really liked the High Evolutionary because that's not kind of putting it wrong, but High Evolutionary was a great villain, portrayed very well. I actually would rather see him be the big bad for the MCU moving forward. I think there's enough meat there on the bones to be that level of villain. And again, like you said, Kate, very easy to detest. And he just gets even more and more evil out the course of the movie and then gets that satisfying death, maybe, at the end. Very good villain, very good movie. Definitely the bounce back that the MCU needed after 2022 and early 2023.
Yeah.
The only small issue I had with the movie was how it incorporated the character of Adam Warlock, because it kind of felt like he just popped in every now and then. I wish that he was utilized a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Oh God, I wish he was used more. I think that I'm a little biased because we did a show for a kid that involved Adam Warlock and one of my good friends who usually hangs out with Star-Lord, played Adam Warlock. And besides the actor himself who played Adam Warlock, my friend did such a it made me love him even more, like Adam Warlock. I it made me wish that there was more Adam Warlock. Like we already have his origin, just put him in another movie. I want to see more of him.
It's definitely in the S tier rank for me. I love Rocket's backstory and how emotional like you can get watching animals cry together. High Evolutionary is great. He adds a lot of intensity and like you're kind of like on the edge of your seat while you're watching. Again, the humor is as great as the other two Guardian movies. Yeah, I agree with the Adam Warlock part. I don't think he's utilized as much as he was advertised, I guess. It didn't ruin the movie. He was still great. I'd love to see him in more projects.
Yeah, and actually, question. Originally, James Gunn had been fired from this movie before they eventually hired him back. Do you think this movie would have been anywhere near as good if they had brought in a different director?
Hell no.
Probably not.
Well, consider the fact half of the cast would have probably openly revolted.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Because I think what was it Dave Bautista that said if they hadn't used James Gunn's script, he would have quit.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, a very good decision to bring him back.
All right, well, with that, I think it goes in S tier.
Amen.
Yeah, no arguments here.
Well, next up, we have the Marvels.
I didn't watch it because I really am not a fan of Captain Marvel, so
You didn't miss much.
Box office bomb.
Andrew, you're actually gonna kind of be upset that I don't agree with you about Quantumania because this is actually my least favorite MCU film. And it's kind of the same reasons why I wasn't a fan of the first Captain Marvel. I'm not invested in her character. I didn't think the three had the best chemistry in the world. The villain of the movie I thought was forgettable. I thought the plot was all over the place. Honestly, I don't even think the movie had much of a plot in all honesty, and I didn't think the action was that good. It was just such a forgettable movie. I don't know what to say. It's definitely my least favorite, so
this is like the Eternals for me. Like I completely forgot the Eternals were a thing, and that was a genuine movie that they put out. I don't care about this one.
I thought Miss Marvel was good in it, but that's really the only praise that I can give it.
This is the definition of it exists.
Yeah,
For me, it's honestly an F tier film, but what about you guys?
put it in F.
You know what? I like the end credit scene. That's about it because I love X-Men. Um, yeah, they really didn't learn anything from the first Captain Marvel movie, and it's just bland.
Yeah, and also, I don't know about you guys, but who have seen it, but to me, watching it, Sam Jackson just kind of looked bored as hell the entire time.
Rent's due, man.
D. Hulk's getting lonely.
All right, we'll put it in D tier. All right, now we have reached the final movie. We have Deadpool and Wolverine.
S tier, S tier.
S tier.
Okay, well, calm down, calm down.
Well, hold up. I'm very biased towards anything X-Men related, so
Blue, take it away. I want to hear this.
I love Wolverine. That's about it. Their dynamic is great. It's funny, it's comedic, it's action-packed. The humor is top notch. I just every time someone asks me what's your favorite scene in the Deadpool series, I say when Deadpool's carrying Nice Pool and he's trying to revive him back to life, and he's like, Wolverine's like, "You killed him, dumbass." I'm like, "I'm trying, man, please." It's great fan service. It's a fan service movie. It's in the line of No Way Home. Especially with Gambit showing up. That was really cool.
I was also happy that we got to see Laura come back. It was fun to see her again.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We talk about how good it was to see Blade again, too.
Yes, Blade.
This was 100% fan service, but this is how every fan service should be.
Hmm.
This is the standard, so step it up, directors. I don't know what to tell you. I was laughing, crying, giggling, excited, seeing Chris Evans as what's his name again?
Human Torch.
Human Torch. I was like, there's no way he's putting Captain America in this. He's not that stupid. He's not going to do that. And having him be Human Torch was, I feel like other people obviously were like, oh yeah, it's going to be him. But I was like, that is insane to put in there. And the opening scene of him fighting with Wolverine's skeleton, Come on. Cinematic masterpiece all the way around. Dogpool. Oh my God. I'm so happy about that because you know damn well I'm getting a costume for Rosie and she's going to be my Dogpool. She's not ugly, but she looks like a rat and that's good enough for me. And she sticks her tongue out. So there you go.
This is a movie that clearly you could tell everybody had a blast making, and that usually produces a good movie.
Yeah, and honestly, one of my favorite sections of the movie is when he's going around and he's finding all the different variants of Wolverine.
Oh yeah. Because
Yeah.
it gives us that little tidbit of what could have been or what could be because there's so many variants, but it didn't feel oversaturated with the whole variant thing because it wasn't focused on variant thing. It was a small snippet of what we want to see and that's it. And it was a taste and it was good enough. It wasn't overdone.
Here's a very challenging question, though. Is this movie better than Logan?
Uh,
Oh,
Oh,
don't do that to me. I think personally Logan is the best superhero film of all time. I think we did this when we did the interview together. That's what I put as my number one film of all time. I could be wrong, but I remember saying something about that movie. It's just so good. You can't beat it.
So it's not better than Logan?
No. It's still good though. Nothing beats Logan.
they're on the same level for me.
this leads more into the, I think we can all agree, kind of ridiculous side of superhero movies. Logan leans more into the dark, serious side.
Hmm.
And Logan, I've argued Logan is even less of a superhero movie as it is a Western that happens to have superheroes in it.
Yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine was a good movie overall. I don't know if I'd say it's the best Deadpool movie of all three, but it's definitely really good. It's definitely up there. Yeah, I'm willing to give it an S tier if that's what you guys think.
Yep.
Sir.
Hmm.
All right, and that is it.
Well, thank you all for joining us after this very fun tier list, this video, where we're definitely going to try to do maybe more of these in the future. Blue and Myka, thank you as always for joining us, and we're definitely going to have you back at some point in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, in that case, this has been We're Talking Movies. Please make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on our various socials, and we will see you all next time.